Yes, the political leader of Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment, better known as LOVE. Let me welcome, of course, the political leader, Lennox Smith. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you as well, my friend. Of course, always a pleasure to be in good company. And, of course, I designate your program as, of course, good company indeed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And folks, of course, yes, it is Lennox Smith, my co-host on The Ground Report. But tonight we're speaking in a different capacity as political leader of LOVE and part, of course, the coalition of interest with the United National Congress. You know, I was speaking to Senator Wade Mark. I don't know if you picked up on that earlier. And when you start to connect the dots, Lennox, it really makes you wonder what is taking place. And with so much confidence and boldness by this administration, you look at what's going to happen with the refinery. It's been shortlisted to Nigerian company, a company that has, of course, when you read about it, shady characters, shady dealings, compounded with the fact that none of our local professionals are going to be hired for this new venture. All of these things taking place. And it makes you wonder, why is it that, you know, it's not resonating with the people when it comes to having a better understanding what needs to be done?
Well, yes. Let's face it. The administration at its highest level. I'm talking here about the prime minister, the prime minister. And I'm emphasizing prime, who has the responsibility of putting his cabinet together, and therefore the government. And what we have seen is really a government by conmanship, a government by lies and deception, because only yesterday, I believe it was, when the question was posed, and in his usual, of course, deflective nature, he, of course, the question being posed by the legitimate and bona fide opposition, in this case, of course, David Lee, and he tried to, of course, deflect by talking about personality and that he should be looking at his court date, etc. Again, reflecting that it is a government by conmanship, and if it is not conmanship, then of course it is a government by deception, and you can go on and on. You know, it is just bewildering that, and at the end of the day, what David Lee, as we have seen in so many other instances, what David Lee would have identified as a public interest matter, and of course the public itself, very, very concerned about this iconic piece of assets. I mean, it is the oil refinery we are talking about here, and Dr. Rowley to be so glib and to be so simplistic and to, of course, deflect it as though it is just his own house or his car that he is getting rid of, and we have seen that in so many instances that it is mind-boggling. I am satisfied that this administration, and I have said it over and over on the Ground Report and elsewhere, that the PNM under this administration, under Dr. Rowley's leadership and stewardship, has morphed into a criminal enterprise, because one cannot go beyond that. I mean, it is incomprehensible to see that assets such as this will now be, put into the category of a very simple and nebulous and nonchalant approach as far as treating with this matter is concerned, and it is cause for serious concern, particularly in a post PNM era, where of course he has coined that term, that is to say, blue lights and silver bracelets. And I'm sure that a plethora of investigations will have to take place on every major decision that this government would have made, always, of course, in the interest of someone else and not in the interest of the population who have reposed their trust in this government, questionably, of course, in some instances as far as the elections prior are concerned, but that is the reality of Trinidad and Tobago today.
So true. Let me ask you, now of course, the coalition, OWTU, PEP, LOVE, and of course led by the UNC, it's a coalition of interests. No, I want to just repeat some of the things here, of course, that Love has been saying that represents love when it comes to the people of Laventille. Laventille has come of age, joining with the UNC Coalition of Interest. Laventille, your time is now. Laventille, the PNM owes you for saving them in 1986, which was 33-3, yet you have been abused and taken for granted. And only Laventille can save Laventille. Why is it so important? I want to ask you, through your eyes as political leader of Love and what you stand for, and all the work you have done in Laventille and the environs, what is the Laventille that Love believes could be a reality?
Well, I'm glad that you gave a historical antecedent, first and foremost, within, of course, that what I consider to be very realistic description of where we are and what we believe can happen. You see, it is first and foremost from the statements that you would have made here, it's not the first time. And so this is not just a labor of love, but a labor of consistency and optimism. Why I say all of that? Because if you take it from 1986, as I've always said, you would see that the loyalty to the PNM has always been a fundamental political principle of that particular geographic space. I like to say geographic space because why it is divided up into Laventille East, Laventille West, and of course Port of Spain South. But there's a similarity, there's a parallel in terms of the socio-economic and psycho-cultural realities and dynamics in that place. And of course, at the same time, the realities of poverty, the realities of gang warfare, the reality of crime and criminality, the reality of underperformance, if not non-performance of our students, and we can go on and on. Of course, the youth pregnancy, single parent challenges, particularly for female, and the very geography itself poses a particular challenge where you have, of course, a number of enclaves, if you want to call it that, and that would have, of course, fermented. And once human beings are so inclined, then you find that kind of physical as well as psychological environment or ecology, if you want to call it that, creates the fragmentation that we are seeing now. But my optimism is based on one, the fact that we have given the country its national culture, steel band and calypso. We have given the country and the world the latest, I should say, percussion instrument invented. We're talking about the steel band, and at the same time we have put our political buckets or rest our political buckets or resolutely in the camp of the PNM, and that party has been in office. Of course, they just celebrated 67 years. It means over 6 decades of loyalty, and yet still the situation in Laventille as we speak is higher than national average. Murders higher than national average, as I say, gang warfare higher than national average of everything that are negative. And it is about time that we take that creativity and repose it into initiatives by the community, for the community, and of the community, simply because the PNM has failed us politically. In other words, I'm simply saying that at the level of the community, we have done. There are people who have done human service, whether it be Archbishop Barbara Greenberg, whether it be Lester Penny, in terms of addressing some of the social problems. But what we have seen is that these very persons, including, of course, Garth Christopher, who you would know well, I think he was the latest victim of that victimization of persons who would see the problem and decide to do something about it, but instead of gravitating to assist, what they do is they stymie and take it away, and take that away, that initiative. And what you are doing in the process is compounding the socio-economic and psycho-cultural debacle that has emerged or as a consequence of that level of neglect and victimization. And it just like no people, no human being will in perpetuity accept evil, accept degradation, accept humiliation, and without responding. Of course, even in the worst of, let's say, marital circumstances, that level of abuse cannot go on in perpetuity. And I think the time has come, and the UNC has provided, of course, the vehicle where they no longer can say that, listen, love cannot form the government, and therefore, because that was one of the issues back in 2007 when we launched the party. And no longer can you say that we cannot form the government with only 3 seats, as the case may be. No, we have attached ourselves to the UNC, very, very credible, very, very acceptable now over time, and therefore, thus, of course, I believe that the time has come for us Laventillians to rise above, and of course take charge of our own political destiny.
And let me ask you this, what has Love been advocating for in the Laventille area?
Well, I think that is so conspicuous to persons like me or persons who have been observing, but certainly the general, and I want to say that is a debilitating component that we were not as we ought to be in terms of promoting what Love has done. I am not talking about what to be here, but of course from what you have done, you can see what can be done. So that when we look at, of course, the development of our own training program, Mobile Laventille Improvement Organization Trade School, over 6,000 youths graduated from that, and of course they're in the police service, army, and what I have I'm very proud about, and that is, of course, one of the students ended up, of course, in the UK Air Force. But of course, across the board, we have been able to do that. And then, of course, in the case of development of programs across administrations, we have a special, let's say, module for the development, or should I say the sub-development, if you divide Laventille into parts, for BFAM. Yeah, we have one for Nelson Street and environs. We have one, of course, for Laventille on the Hill. We have one for, of course, Observatory Street and all the adjacent areas, Belmont, etc., where, of course, the same, and of course, East Port of Spain, where the same socio-economic and psycho-cultural realities exist. And but of course, it has to be said, if we are doing that, and we have shown that these are not airy-fairy to be prospective. These are things that have actually occurred, and therefore, if we can do it without government assistance, in fact, in spite of the PNM's recalcitrance and their ability to, of course, always negative these developments because it's an initiative by persons who may have a propensity to be independent and to tell anybody, it doesn't matter who, as it is, in defense of Laventille. And of course, the PNM is the one that controls the political dominance of that area, and therefore they would be the one to say yes or no. Well, we have seen over the years that they have been saying no, and we are saying yes to self-initiative, self-development, and taking the initiative away from them politically.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Smith. I mean, when you talk about the fact that only Laventille can save Laventille, I mean, it looks as though the biggest challenge there is the people themselves believing that things can change, that things can happen. How much of that is a fear factor when I've heard you say time and time again for so many years that I've known you, that you would empty the treasury on Laventille and give Laventille what it wants? Do you believe that brings about a sense of fear I mean, when you look into the minds of people and say to themselves, I don't deserve that kind of treatment. I don't deserve that kind of special VIP sort of treatment. That is not the essence of my culture. I have to stay in line. I have to be indebted to a party because mommy was in it, daddy was in it, uncle was in it. But when you come to break that way of thinking, that psychological cycle and say, listen, you deserve the best. I will give you the best. I will empty the treasury on you. How do you try to get that across?
You know, I've always respected you for bringing up, of course, a very pertinent and critical questions, you know, in situations like this. And I can tell you that I too have been, over the years, been mind-boggled about why it is that people will settle for less when they have the potential to be the greatest thing, in this case, of course, in Trinidad and Tobago. And I've always said that if you solve the Laventille question, you solve crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Talk about blue-collar crime here, not the white-collar crime. And why am I saying this, and why the focus on Laventille, and why Laventille is so important? Well, I've always argued that no other community in Trinidad and Tobago, apart from the concrete jungle scenario, I mean, let's face it, it's a concrete jungle. It's not like a far-off community like, let's say, Mayaro or Guayaguari, as the case may be, where a fella could still go outside and maybe pick a mango, pick an orange, or still go on the beach and get a fish, as the case may be, and eat. He doesn't need nice clothes, etc., etc. But the opposite is the case in a place like Laventille. But more significantly, the international advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, I cannot overemphasize that. The international advisories against Trinidad and Tobago does not mention any other community or any other street or any part of any other community but Laventille, so that the advisories, go and check it now, will tell you whether it's from Canada, whether it's from the United States, whether it's from any one of the European countries. They would say, don't go to Trinidad. But if you do go, don't go to the Savannah, don't go on Nelson Street, don't go in certain parts of East Port of Spain. And therefore, from that perspective, it means therefore we are at an advantage from the beginning. And that is why I was so critical of Dr. Rowley when he said that he would put the desperados on Nelson Street. And he has the audacity, the temerity, the gall, and the effort. I trust that people from Laventille and, of course, more specifically desperados are listening as to why my disapprobation, my disapproval of that gesture. Because he had the audacity to say at the same time that when tourists come to Trinidad, they will go around the Savannah, of course, looking at his pet projects, his vanity projects, whether it be Whitehall, whether it be Mayflower, whether it be, of course, Stormers, Castle, etc., etc., and then come down Charlotte Street and go across Piccadilly Street and come down Nelson Street. Whilst, of course, the place from which these potential investors and tourists come, their own governments are telling them, do not go on Nelson Street. Do not go, if you decide to go to Trinidad at all, do not go on Nelson Street. What is the government telegraphing to the population? That either we are fools, either we are uneducated, either we are unaware, and then therefore, of course, or institutionalizing the demise, the continued demise of these communities, because it will not happen. You have to solve, of course, the socio-economic conditions there. Crime and criminality, for example, I see they are now talking about crime and gang warfare as a terrorist. Yeah. A terrorist. Of course, that is a step up from it being, of course, a health phenomenon, a public health phenomenon. Recently, of course, at $3 million in Trinidad, all of the same people will gather here in Trinidad at Trinidad and Tobago taxpayers' expense.
That's right.
So talk, and now he's talking, of course, as a terrorist initiative. I mean, it is just mind-boggling, and it is just what I consider to be dishonest. That, of course, a prime minister would take the lead in that regard and literally foment and institutionalize the demise of a community. That is not all, inadvertently, he also talked about Queen Street being, of course, a latrine for those, of course, displaced elements that would use it for edification purposes and for relieving themselves. But it's laying the foundation to put out the people from there.
Of course.
And of course, gentrification, if you want to call it. I have not seen no real sign of actual gentrification, but what I'm seeing is attempted to displace. But in doing so, as we have said, again, Love is of the view that you must talk about containment and not about disseminating or displacing these people to all other parts of the country, because you will simply exacerbate crime and criminality, blue collar I'm talking about, because if you accept, and I have to accept it, because that is an element we must treat with, and that is to say the criminal element of those who gravitated to that. So we have a plan for that as well, but you cannot as a government wholesale and whole scale take up these people and put them in the other parts of the country and expect that the proliferation and the exponential increase in murders, crime, gang warfare will not materialize. That is, you're living in a fool's paradise, and of course it is unfolding on a daily basis. The government, of course, doesn't have a clue as to what to do, but whether advertently or inadvertently by their policies and their various initiatives have in fact fomented and have created and have augmented that kind of what I consider antisocial behavior, but now it has now engulfed the entire Trinidad and Tobago because of your displacement policies and other initiatives.
And you're so right, Mr. Smith. I know, of course, those of you know his program is supposed to be starting soon on social media, Corridor Transformation. I'm giving you a minute there, Lennox. Please let people know to come on board. You're going to have your cottage meetings. You are preparing. You're part of the coalition of interest. They want to get in touch with you. And of course, let the people of Laventille know that you are about adding value to their life so finally they can live better. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. But what I want to say, I have taken on this responsibility personally. So you can call me at the 337-6940. I know, Mikey, you have the numbers, so I'm sure you will do the honors afterwards. 337-6940. That's 1, 2. All students that graduated from MLIO, we need your country. And your community needs you now. All Laventillians, your community and your country needs you now. And of course, those persons who have special interests and those persons who have businesses or you can make contributions to the effort, because we more or less have to fund our own way. We are calling on you at this point in time. We cannot afford to go 1 minute more than the permitted, what I consider to be period for calling the elections, which of course is this year. We cannot go 1 minute beyond that, and therefore in Trinidad, I am of the view that Laventille must now be part and parcel of the historic event. In other words, I am claiming that 39 seats, because in prior years, PNM could have depended on the Laventilles in order, of course, to salvage some kind of political survivability. I am now saying to Laventillians, you have had more than 6 decades of neglect, deception, exploitation, and now the time has come where you have your own vehicle, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment and political organization, hitching its wagon, of course, to the UNC. So you cannot tell me that we will not get into government. I talk about love here. And therefore, as you rightly said earlier, Mikey, if I have my way, I empty the treasury in Laventille. That is what you're looking at the future.
To me, when I hear you say that, I always say this man is really and truly committed. I mean, he has an unconditional love for the people of Laventille, because I think you know to yourself, listen, things can be better. Whether it be infrastructure, whether it be having access to things that you feel you don't deserve, you can have it. I mean, and going back to, I put you up there with people like Isabel Thaisa, Muriel Donawa, Jean Pierre, Morris Marshall, and unfortunately, you see how they were treated, especially Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, because you have to totally like no candidate, whether you sympathetic because they're youth or they have academic except or their academic exception in the area and it's from the area, but they will not be able to deliver if Hippolyte couldn't deliver, if Jonah Cox couldn't deliver, if Hines couldn't deliver, how you expect anybody else that are of less vintage than them to deliver? So therefore, the onus is upon us and on our own volition and with our own initiatives, we must be able to carry the area forward, and of course with of course the understanding that Trinidad and Tobago will be a better place ultimately as Laventille takes its position in this development process.
Thank you so much, Lennox Smith. Keep up the good work, and we'll be checking in with you periodically. Best of luck to you and your entire team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes.